we have just gone over a review of the first part of NOACH. Today's Torah portion is called NOACH. Okay? And we're going to cover now, beginning on page 7 of the teachings, the appointed times of NOACH. Genesis 6:3, starting at Genesis 6:3. So let's look at Genesis 6. I'm sorry. Genesis 6:3. That's probably from last week. Did you notice? We have to go back to last week's portion to begin to go over this. Genesis 6:3. Yehovah said, "It shall not content my spirit, Ruach, concerning man forever. In that additionally he is but flesh. His days shall be 120 years." Okay, and then we talked about that Nephilim, which we never got into. The giants. The giants are going to come back, by the way, soon. It's a matter of when, we don't know. I know that it says that they're being concealed and they're being kept for the day of judgment. Okay, when the resurrection of the righteous occur, then those who are left on the earth, those two groups of people I talked about earlier, they're going to be on the earth with them. People are going to see things supernatural with their physical eyes. So anyhow, that's just. But I wanted to share with you that God says He will contend with flesh only 120 years. Now, okay, let me just clear this up. 120 jubilees. Every 50 years is a jubilee year. And if you count up 120 jubilees, it comes out to 6,000 years. There's going to be 6,000 years of flesh. And then comes God's day, and He's going to rule over flesh in that day. In the day of the Lord, in the Messianic kingdom. Okay, so 120 jubilees represent, it's like 50 years times 120. 120 jubilees is 6,000 years. Now, go back to the Torah portion for today, chapter 7, verse 6. Okay, Noah was the age of 600 years when the flood of water was upon the earth. And Noah entered together with his sons, his wife, and the wives of his sons with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Okay, let me just tell you something a lot of people may not know. Did you know that the Jews say that Noah entered the ark on October 31st? Really? Before there was an October 31st, they said that it was around that time is when they entered, and maybe even on that time is when they entered the ark. Because the flood of waters are about to occur. Okay? People around celebrate death on Halloween. They turned this into this like celebration of death, celebration of demons. The witches love it. The Satan loves it. And, Satan worshipers love it. But where did it come from? Well, the roots of it come from the destruction of the flood. Okay? So there is so much death that is probably a tradition God started by Noah's family to memorialize all the death. Because it says it does not please the Lord to kill the wicked. It doesn't please the Lord when he kills people. He has to destroy people. So in memorial, maybe at one point it was a memorial, and today it is turned into Halloween. Or, they say it's All Hallows Eve connected to the harvest. But in reality, the celebration of death around Halloween is connected to the flood. Some ceremony that happened after the flood. And that's as far as I'm going to go about this. But that's what tradition says, by the Jewish tradition, that Noah entered the ark, Noah and his family entered the ark on October 31st. Okay. But some other good things happen on October 31st, like, for instance, the battle for Beersheba, which we talked about in the story that we're going over with Rabbi Jonathan Kahn on the Oracle. The battle for Beersheba Beersheba led to the British taking that land back that they could then make a promise to give it to Israel. Okay, so it's not a bad day, but the enemy turns it into a bad day, by continuing to celebrate death. Okay, now, get back to this. In 7:6, it says here, Noah was at the age of 600 years when the flood of water was upon him. Well, remember, I said 50 times 120 jubilees, 6,000 years. 600 years, 6,000 years. So, in a shadow form, Noah represents at the year 6,000 when the Messianic kingdom will come. But in this case, the Messianic kingdom is the ark. It's the ark of Noah. Okay? And the reason I'm sharing this is I want you to understand, and all you who are watching out there, to understand that everything that happened regarding Noah and the ark was by appointed times before there were appointed times. Everything that happened. And something I'm going to share here at the end is a festival or a celebration that we have on the Jewish calendar, on God's calendar, that we may have thought is a small event, is a much bigger event in this story. And it even has a future celebration to it. We're going to find out there's probably another appointed time here that we missed. Maybe right now it's not an appointed time, but it will be an appointed time. Okay. So, in chapter 7, 8 to 10, God's telling him you're to bring clean and unclean creatures in pairs of seven pairs for the clean, 1 pair for the unclean. Why? It's to teach us. If we're not learning from the animals, what's the sense of God saving the animals? Okay? Not to eat, by the way. That's not really the reason he saved those animals. It's to teach us. Okay, now, looking at chapter 7, 11, and 12. What is that? Okay. Okay. Verse 10, starting verse 10. It came to pass, after a 7-day period, that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. And in the year that was the 600th year of the life of Noah, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month. Now that would be the month of Bull, or Cheshvan. Okay? 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, and on that day burst forth that all the fountains of the deep that is great. Okay, so on the 17th day of this month that we're in right now, that started this week. This week it started, the month of Bull. Okay? On the 17th day of this month, which I don't know what that is this year. What is the 17th day this year?
Give me a second.
It will be about probably 2 weeks from now, right? Or less than that. Okay, but anyhow, the fountains of the deep that is great, and the windows of the heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the midst of that day when the rains were coming down, that 40-day period, Noah came with Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, with the wife of Noah and the 3 wives of his sons, with them into the ark. So it was during the rain. The flood hadn't yet happened. It was just raining. Okay? It was raining pretty heavily, but it was during that time that they went into the ark. Yes?
It's the 15th of November.
Okay, 15th of November. Keep that in mind. Because that's going to be when we celebrate the date that they went into the ark. Okay? Or the floods, or at least the rains began. Okay? It says here that they and every beast after its kind, every animal after its kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, every bird of any kind of wing. Okay, every bird of any kind of wing. They came to Noah into the ark 2 by 2 of all flesh, in which there was a breath of life, the Ruach. Thus they that came, male and female, of all flesh did they come, as Jehovah had commanded him, and Jehovah shut it on his behalf. Shut the ark. God did that. He closed the ark. Okay, when the flood was 40 days on the earth, okay, the waters increased and raised the ark so that it lifted above the earth. Okay, now let's go into this. Okay, the rain ended. We're on the bottom of page 7. The rain ended after 40 days and 40 nights. On the third month of the 27th day of Kislev. That is during Chanukah, before there was a Chanukah, that is. Now, that's the month of Kislev. However, as soon as the 40 days of rain ended, the scriptures tell us, that was the moment the flood waters lifted up the ark. In verse 17. When the flood was 40 days on the earth, the waters increased and raised the ark so that it was lifted above the earth. So at that point, the floodwaters hadn't yet been strong enough to lift the ark up. It was at the end of the 40 days of rain that it finally lifted up the ark. Okay? And what day was that? It was around Chanukah. Okay. One second. Let's find the spot here. Okay. Verse 18. Okay. Now we're on verse 18. The ark, the water strengthened and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark moved about upon the surface of waters. Okay, the ark moving upon the surface of waters was sort of like in Bereshit, Genesis 1, verse 2. Remember that there was the Holy Spirit fluttered above the waters, so it's sort of a similar thing. The ark became like the Holy Spirit fluttering above all the waters. So there's a pattern here I want you to see that is connected between the Genesis creation and what's going on with the flood. Okay, now let's read. Let's read on. The water strengthened exceedingly much, verse 19. Chapter 7:19. The water strengthened exceedingly much upon the earth, and the earth was covered, all the mountains which are high, that were under the entire heavens. Now, how could that happen from a rainstorm? There is believed to be right in the waters, when God separated the waters, there was waters in the heavens, right above the earth. A canopy of water. That's why people lived a long time. They lived, Methuselah, 1,064 years or something like that? I mean, not 1,000, 964 years. Okay. Actually, that was a big far-fetched here. But anyhow, it's like 964, I think. I'm not sure. But anyhow, people live long, okay? And it's also believed that dinosaurs were probably on the earth at that time, but at peace. Because everything, they all ate of the herbs. So they were not eating man or anything like that, okay? But it's possible that there were some there, some dinosaurs there. In the time right before the flood. Yes?
969.
969 years is how old Methuselah, the oldest man that ever lived. Okay? But after the flood, you're going to see that the ages start dropping off. And we start hearing about how this person was this age, and then it kept dropping off and dropping off and dropping off. Because those waters were keeping people living like a long time. I think those waters are going to be restored when the kingdom comes. You know why? Because it says that as the days of a tree will be the days of my people. And it literally says in Isaiah 65, it talks about the kingdom, and it says that people will live a long time. And they'll be having babies and having children, and they'll be living like, it won't be like 100, maybe if we get to live 100 years or 120, because God blessed us on this earth. I've heard of people still living. There was a rabbi that lived to 108 years old. Okay, but anyhow, so, you know, the world, that those waters were released from above. but there was also waters under the ground. Remember, it says water used to come up, and there would be no rain. It would be like the strong dew that would water everything on the earth.
It was a mist.
A mist that would come up. But see, all that water got released from beneath. You know how today when volcanoes go up, they spew out all this fire and lava? Well, back then, there was so much water, it would have had to spew out water. So when the flood occurred, everything was released from above and everything was released from below. So therefore, there was so much water that it went to the tops of the mountains. Okay, so it wasn't just the rainstorm that did it. Okay, it was just all those waters that changed the face of the earth. Okay, so let's get back to this. Water prevailed on the earth 150 days from the second month Bul or Cheshvan, starting the 17th day through the 7th month of Aviv or Nisan on the 17th day. Aviv is the month that has Passover, which is Bikurim or first fruits. Okay, so let's look at continue to read the scriptures. Verse 20. Let's start on verse 20, chapter 7, verse 20. 15 cubits upward did the water strengthen, and covered where the mountains perished, had all flesh that moves upon the earth, among the birds, among the animals, among the beasts, and among all the crawling things that crawl upon the earth, and all mankind. Everything that there was a breath of the Spirit of life in its nostrils, of everything that was on dry land died. And he blotted out all existence that was on the face of the ground, from man to animal to creeping thing to birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Left surviving only was Noah and those with him in the ark. And the water strengthened on the earth 150 days. Now we're up to where I wanted us to read. For 150 days that they strengthened. Let's keep reading to verse 4 of chapter 8. Chapter 8, verse 1. God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the animals that were with him in the ark, and Elohim caused to pass, God caused to pass the Ruach, the Spirit, over the earth, and the water subsided. And closed were the fountains of the deep and the windows of the heaven, and restrained was the rain from the heavens. And the waters then receding from upon the earth, continuously receding, and the waters diminished at the end of 150 days. Okay, now I have in the back, on the last page, a calendar so you can follow this better. And unfortunately, for those of you who are watching out there, it might be a little more difficult. Okay? But going from the beginning of this flood of the waters, you count 150 days, and that takes you to the 17th day of Aviv, or Nisan, as some call it. That is when the boat stopped. There was no more flooding, it stopped. Okay, now, don't you find this interesting? The day of Yeshua's resurrection. The day in the future when Yeshua would resurrect is also, there are other things that happened on that date. Israel crossed the Red Sea on that date. So they came up on the other side later. Okay? But all this happening on the 17th is saying that all the stress, all the flooding, never knowing when you're going to settle down on that land. You're in this boat for over a year, or almost a year, and yet, here's the hope. Yeshua's resurrection. The same date as Yeshua's resurrection is the date that there's a hope for those in the ark. That it's coming to an end. The same date as Yeshua's resurrection. Now, when Yeshua resurrected, he reversed the curse that was on mankind. Okay? That's in Galatians 3. Well, guess what? When this is all finished with the earth, God says, I will no longer curse the earth for man's sake. So God reverses the curse that was upon the earth. Remember, God placed the curse because of Adam and Chava sitting and eating from the tree that they were not supposed to. And he said, the land will only produce thorns and thistles for you. But that curse was removed at the flood. And we'll go over that in a second. That's a part of the covenant. Okay, so the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat, which unfortunately is around the Iran area, meaning the curse has been reversed. Ararat literally means that. Look at where it landed. Look at the name of the place. Ararat means the curse reversed. It literally means the curse reversed. The place that they landed on, that they stopped on the day that Yeshua in the future will be resurrected, means the curse reversed. That's just a little everything. Everything that happened with Noah and the ark is a prophetic thing that's telling us about the times and the seasons, even before there was any festivals, even before they were ever observed. Okay? All right, so let's go on. Look at verse 5. Chapter 8, verse 5. The waters were continuously diminishing until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first of the month, visible were the tops of the mountains. Okay? So the waters kept receding. Okay, it says here they were continuously diminishing until the 10th month. Okay, so let's look at verse in the middle of page 8. The tops of the mountains were visible on the new moon of Tammuz, which back then was the 10th month. Remember, the calendars were not changed till Exodus 12, where God says the 7th month becomes the first month. So they were not changed yet. So the 10th month is the month of Tammuz on the first day on the new moon, which, by the way, remember that is the day that they went out to spy out the land, the children of Israel. And because they came back at the end of 40 days with a bad report, they were not permitted to go into the land. Remember that? So it became a 40-day period of cursing, of trouble. And yet, there's something even in this, that the tops of the mountains were visible on the new moon of Tammuz. Like, there's a hope there. You could get it right the first time, but they didn't get it right the first time. But, that's the same. It represents the beginning of the time of straits, of the trouble, of the Ben HaMetzarim. Fires were lit, by the way, when they would tell the new moon every month, fires were lit on the tops of mountains to tell the nation of Israel it was the new moon. This is the day the children of Israel began to spy out their inheritance. It was supposed to be a glorious time, but later, through Yis'rael's disobedience, turned into a bad time with mourning and distress. Okay, now what happens? Look at verse 6 and 7. It came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent out the raven, and it went going forth and returning until the drying of the waters was upon the earth. Okay, now, what was it? 40 days from the first day, the new moon of Tammuz. What is 40 days from the new moon of Tammuz? The 9th of Av. The day that is the worst day of the Ben HaMetzarim. It's the day that Israel said, we could have taken that land. 2 of them said yes, but 10 of them said no. We're overwhelmed. We're nothing. We're grasshoppers in this area. Remember? Everything is by the times and seasons. The calendar of God is at work here. Okay? And so on the 9th of Av represents a bad omen. I hate to say omen, you use a word like that, but just terrible things have happened because of bad decisions by Israel. And it's known as the worst day and the worst fast of the entire year. The 9th of Av. Okay? So what happens? A raven is sent out. What's a raven? A black bird. Yes, it represents darkness. Okay? A darkness, and so it didn't return. Okay? So it didn't return. So it's like, it's hopeless. It's death. It's destruction. What? It's flesh, yes. Okay, so Tisha B'Av, appointed time for disasters for the children of Israel and the world. Raven actually is also called a bird of trouble. about this. Raven is called a bird of trouble. And what are we talking about? The season of trouble is Bein HaTzorim. The worst day of it, the 9th of Av. That's okay, don't worry about it, Josh. So we get the word evening from this word, which is the beginning of every day, the darkness. Darkness starts every day. Darkness starts the day of Yehovah. This is the worst day in Jewish history for many reasons. Now the word Arav, I have it in your notes. It means evening or to grow dark. Okay? Okay, I just wanted to make the connection here. Okay, so we're on the 9th of Av. Noah sends out the raven to see if the waters have dried up enough for them to leave the ark. Right? Okay, so look at verse 8 and 9 now. Then he sent out the dove from him to see whether the waters had subsided from upon the face of the ground. But the dove could not find a resting place for the sole of her foot, and it returned to him in the ark. Remember, the ark, Noah means rest. He returned to Noah, the place of rest. For water was upon the surface of all the earth, so he put forth his hand and took it and brought it to him into the ark. Okay, let's look at this. At the bottom of page 8 in the notes. A dove was sent on the 9th of Av, returned because it found no resting place. The rabbis say the dove was sent 7 days after the raven, but the scriptures do not give a date of 7 days. So here's what I say. And this is, I'm telling you, it says that the raven was sent out on the 9th of Av, and so was the dove. You have darkness, and you have spirit. How many times would I share that it's all the attitude? There was 10 with a bad report, 2 with a good report. Okay? So on that day, you choose. You choose, but both of them didn't have, there was no hope, seemingly. Well, what happened to the children of Israel? It wasn't on the 2 good witnesses. That wasn't enough. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, even though there were 2 good reports out of the 12. So here you have the dove. The dove was in Yehoshua and Caleb. In the future, okay? And in the raven was the 10 bad witnesses. Okay. All right. So they were sent out. The Ruach Hakodesh, we're still in the notes there. The Holy Spirit came upon Yeshua like a dove. Okay? Remember that. So it represents peace. The dove is symbolic of the Spirit. So who had the right spirit? Yehoshua and Caleb. Noah took the dove to himself. It was a female dove. The Ruach Hakodesh is feminine. During the weeks of comfort, we take the Ruach to ourselves. This is proof how through this, though this day starts in darkness, there is light. The day of Yehovah starts in darkness. Then comes the glorious Messiah. Okay, in other words, that even though 9th of Av, all this bad stuff happened, there is comfort. And comfort is even in the dove that was sent out. The Holy Spirit like a dove. The word for dove is yonah, and it also, its root word means wine. So that means wine is for comfort. Okay. Okay, so let's go now to verse 10 and 11. I'm going to bring this to a conclusion at some point, and you'll see this powerful message. I'm trying to save the best for last year, okay? So anyhow, I want you to understand that God is doing everything by this calendar, 10 and 11. He waited again for 7 days that were additional, and again sent out the dove. So he sends out the dove after 7 more days. He sends it from the ark. And back to him came the dove toward the time of the evening, and behold, a leaf from an olive tree plucked was its bill, and no one knew that the waters had subsided from upon the earth. Okay, so let's look at this. So, again, after 7 days from the 9th of Av, the dove was sent again on the 16th of Av with freshly picked olive leaf in her beak. Close to the 15th of Av is a date about forgiveness and the time of comfort. That is when Nachamu begins. Shabbat Nachamu is almost a week after the 9th of Av. Okay, so there's hope, right? There's hope. Now, after the 40 days, after the period, there's this hope of comfort, that God's bringing his comfort, right? Y'all follow this? So this is the month of Av, the Father. It starts off bad, but then we get to Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, and Shabbat Nachamu, in comfort. In the weeks of comfort, the olive tree in Romans 11 represents biblical Judaism, or the way of our walk with Elohim for Jew and Gentile. In other words, the world is the Gentiles, but the Jews have come in the freshly picked olive leaf, and the Messiah is the olive branch. That is why things are going to get better. So, with the olive branch, that is meaning those that are coming into God, into a walk with God, is in the mouth, the beak of the dove, which is the Holy Spirit. Okay, you following this okay? Okay, so that's that. Look in verse 12. Now we're going to verse 12. Then he waited again another 7 days that were additional, and sent out the dove, and it didn't return again because it found a place to live. Okay, and it came about at the 601st year of the first month of the month. Okay, now remember, before the calendar was changed, that would bring us to Tishri. That would bring us to Etanim, the month that we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah. So now it's telling us Yom Teruah. So let's look at what happens. Verse 12. Verse 13. It came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first of the month, waters dried from upon the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark, and he looked, and behold, dry had the surface of the ground. Okay, so the covering is removed. Well, what's going to be removed? Remember that the ark was like the three heavens. So what's going to be opened? The third heavens. The heavens are going to be open to us. So what's going to happen on that day? It says, Noah removed the covering of the ark. It becomes a time of intimacy. It becomes the time of the resurrection of the righteous. We are with him again like in Eden, and the covering of the ark represents death of all the believers of Yeshua in the world. This is our resurrection. This is our new life. Death will be removed from the believers. What, Josh?
The veil
Yes, the veil being removed away. And we will see him. It's going to happen on Rosh Hashanah Yom Teruah. And this is when they opened up the top of the ark. Everything is being done by these times and seasons. Before there was any times and seasons, there should be no excuse for us as believers for not following his calendar. Because God was following his calendar with the story of Noah. Okay, next. 14 to 19. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month. So now we're back to the month of Cheshvan, or Bull. Okay, on the 27th day of the month, fully dry was earth. It's now the 27th day of this month, of the month of Bull. God spoke to Noah, saying, "Go forth from the ark, you, your wife, your sons, and the wives of your sons with you, every living being that is with you, of all flesh, of birds, of animals, and of all creeping things that creep on the earth. Order them out with you, and let them be prolific on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." And so Noah went forth, and his sons, his wife, the wives of his sons with him, every living being, and every creeping thing, and every bird, and everything that moves on the earth, by their families, came out of the ark. Now that started around the 27th, but the calendar, I need to tell you that the calendar back then was 30 days each. But when the flood occurred, it probably put the earth on a tilt. So that probably, when it says Cheshvan 27, might have been the second to last day of the month. Okay, so it was right there on, very close to the new moon, when all the animals, and they all leave the ark, it was very close to the new moon of Kislev, the month of Chanukah. Okay, now we're going to get into something maybe that you haven't seen before. Noah and his family And all the creatures left the ark on dry land. This was the 27th of Heshvan. Again, the time of water. This is a month having to do with water. Elohim shortly after promises not to destroy the Eretz by a flood again. It is close to the new moon of Kislev. Okay, I'm not going to review all the other notes because that's more of a review of what I just read. Okay, so let's look at what happens. This is going to be the most important part of this teaching. This is what's going to be a personal revelation to all of us. Okay, Genesis 8:20. Okay. Okay. Noah built an altar to Jehovah, and he took of every animal that is clean and every bird that is clean, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And Jehovah smelled the aroma that was pleasing. And Jehovah said in his heart, I will not continue to curse again the ground because of man, since the thoughts of the heart of man are evil from his youth, nor will I continue again to smite every living being as I have done. Remember? Reverse the curse. Continuously all the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter. So it's the same thing about fall and spring in there. There is no fall and spring. Summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Okay? And, okay, I'm going to stop right there. Okay? One thing we talked about Hanukkah has nothing to do with lights. Hanukkah has nothing to do with candles burning. We burn candles, we have a Chanukah, 8 branches, but Hanukkah means rededication. Rededication of what? The altar was defiled by the Greeks. Okay? And here's what's very interesting is this is a slight assumption, and I say this is a slight assumption. They build an altar, and what they're offering up is pleasing to the Lord. This has to do with a rededicated altar to God. They're rededicating their lives to walking with God. The altar, this most likely happened at the same date as Hanukkah. We can't prove it because they don't give us the exact days when they did this altar. But we know it was right at the new moon of Kislev when they all left, so it couldn't have happened right away. It had to take probably a few weeks to get settled in, and they took some of the animals. And by the way, it's on Kislev 25 to celebrate Hanukkah. Okay, but it was close enough. So the altar made by Noah may be a shadow and type of a Hanukkah altar, rededication. Elohim may have made his covenant of the bow with man and all the creation on Hanukkah before there was a Hanukkah. This is an important day. Let's read on. I know I've been long here, but it's really important for us to see. Okay, so here he starts. We're on chapter 9, verse 1. God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the land. Fear of you and dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens and everything that moves on the earth and in all the fish of the sea. In your hand they are given. Every moving thing that lives for you shall be for food. Like the green herbage that I gave you, everything. But the flesh with its soul, with the blood in it, you shall not eat. However, your blood, which belongs to your souls, I will demand. Of every beast, I demand it. But of man, and of every man for that of his brother, I will demand it. In other words, basically, you can eat anything you want, clean or unclean. But here's the thing. God taught him what was clean. God taught him what was unclean. So if he wanted to please the Lord, he would eat what was clean. But it was all an act of faith and an act of honoring God with your will. Okay, so he said, just don't eat anything with its blood, with the blood in it. And he will require, it says here, every man of his brother I will demand that his blood is spilt, the soul of that man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For the image of God he made man, and you be fruitful, multiply, be prolific on the earth, and multiply on it. And God said to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and as for me, indeed, I establish my covenant with you and with your offspring after you, and with every being that is living, that is with you, with the birds, with the animals, and with every beast of the land that is with you, of all that exited the ark, to every beast of the land. And I will confirm my covenant with you. Never shall be cut off all flesh again. Now this covenant was not just with Noah, it was with all of us, all of his creation. Never shall be cut off all flesh again by the waters of a flood, and never shall be again a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, Elohim said, this is the sign of the covenant that I give between me and you, and between every being that is living, that is with you to generations forever. My bow. It doesn't say rainbow. It was translated rainbow, but it's actually bow. Keshem. My rainbow I have set in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and between the earth. And it shall happen when I place the cloud over the earth, and it will be seen the bow in the cloud. The bow in the cloud will be seen. I will remember my covenant which is between me and you, and between every being that is living among all flesh. And it shall never be again that the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it to remember the covenant that is everlasting between God and between every being that is living among all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have confirmed between me and between all flesh that is upon the earth. Okay. All right. So, let's say, look at Zechariah 9:13 to 15. For I have been Yehudah, my bow. Same word, Keshem. And fitted the bow with Ephraim, and raised up your sons, O Zion, against your sons, O Greece, and made you like a sword of a mighty man. Then Jehovah will be seen over them, and his arrow will go forth like lightning. And the Lord Jehovah will blow the shofar, and go with whirlwinds from the south. Jehovah of hosts will defend them. They shall devour and subdue with sling stones. They shall drink and roar as if with wine. They shall be filled with blood like basins, like the corners of the altar. This is all about the altar, and it's all about a bow, and the bow is the Jews against the Greeks. Okay? And it talks about the corners of the altar, and it talks about the blood, like it talks about in Noah, and it talks about the wine. Like Noah, right after this, he built a vineyard, and he farmed a vineyard, and he drank the wine, and remember, he made himself naked when he got drunk, and there's a whole thing that happens with the sons, okay? But anyhow, I want you to see this, okay? That Elohim, in this prophecy, in Zechariah 9:13-15, is reverting back to the covenant. Elohim might have been prophesying about Israel versus the nations here in a future place at the time of a future Chanukah. So, the important thing, I want you to see this. This covenant that was made with all of humanity was made on Chanukah. I'll go out and I'll say it. Okay? I can't prove it, but neither can anyone else that I'm wrong on this. That the covenant of the rainbow or the bow was made on Hanukkah with Noah and all flesh forever. Okay? But ultimately, there is something else here for us. This is our covenant. This has to be important because this is also about after the destruction of the world. So that means if that was a type and shadow of another destruction in the future, which is going to be by fire according to the Word of God, that means it's also probably going to happen that it's going to be on Hanukkah after that event. that is going to be confirmed. Again, that covenant, but this time that I will not destroy the world by fire. Okay, so let's look at I have a little commentary here, and then we'll close it. We'll close this. Okay. Top of page 11. Noah gives after his getting drunk with wine from a vineyard he planted, and after the events of his son Ham. See, what happens is he plants a vineyard, he drinks the wine, he gets drunk, he's naked out there, and his son Ham, whose name literally means hot, lustful creature, goes and he sees his father naked and comments, "Hey, I just saw my father naked at the farm." Okay, and then he tells his two brothers, Yefet and Shem, and they go backwards and cover up their father. Okay, and because of this, there's a prophecy that comes forth. And we'll read that in a second. So Noah gives after getting drunk with wine from a vineyard he planted, and after the events concerning his son Ham, a confirming of the importance of Judah, where Yehuda comes from, defeating the Greeks in the future. This is still connected to the Hanukkah story and the covenant God already made with Noah and his family and a new earth, cleansing. Noah's prophecy. Let's look at chapter 9, 25 to 27, and look at this prophecy. Okay. Noah awoke from the wine. I'm reading verse 24 of chapter 9. From his wine, and he realized that which was done to him by his small son. Verse 25, and he said, "Cursed is Canaan." This is interesting. There was no Canaan yet. That was going to be his son. Okay? He says, "Cursed is Canaan, a slave shall he be to his brothers." And he said, "Blessed is Jehovah, the God of Shem." He said, the God of Shem, blessed is Jehovah. He is Jehovah. And let Canaan be a slave to them, and may God extend Yahweh, but he will dwell in the tents of Shem. Okay, do you get this? Okay, so he's saying, after this thing that happens, he says, "Cursed is Canaan." In fact, there's a scripture in Zechariah that says there will no longer be a Canaanite in all the land of Israel when his kingdom comes. Okay, but what's amazing about all this is he says, Yahweh, you will serve. You will serve Shem. You will live in the tents of Shem. Well, where is Yahweh? Remember we talked about this? Out of Yahweh comes Kittim, the sons of Greece. Greece. In other words, he is going to bring Greece into submission to the God of Shem. And who came out of Shem? Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the tribe of Israel, including Judah, the one who bears the king. Okay, so in other words, what we're saying here is that there's a promise that always Judah will defeat the Greeks. And it's made on Chanukah. Now, when this incident happened with Noah, it probably was much later than that. Okay, it was way past Hanukkah, probably years later. What, Josh, you have something?
Yeah, Judah Maccabee.
Yeah, Judah Maccabee, Judah the Hammer. That's another prophecy there. Judah the Hammer. Okay, let me read this to you. Okay, Noah's prophecy in Genesis 9, 25 to 27 states that Yefet will dwell in the tents of Shem. This may be the proof. Shem's descendants would bring about Avram, and after that the Jews, or Yehudim. Yefet's descendants would bring about the Greeks. Yefet living in the tents of Shem implies a future defeat of the Greeks at the hands of the Yehudim, the bow and the arrows. There may be a future Hanukkah for the people of God. We will meet with Messiah at the next covenant with the earth of not destroying the earth by fire again. This time it says, I will not destroy the earth by water, but there's also I believe, a future Hanukkah where he's going to say, I will not destroy the earth by fire again. Okay? On the same day God made the first covenant with the earth and not destroying it, with the water of the flood, saying, I will not destroy it again with the water of the flood. So Hanukkah may become a new moed, an appointed time, or at least a more important day in the Messianic kingdom. To us now, it should be more important than it ever was. And we'll finish up with a couple verses here. Daniel 12. Look at Daniel 12, 4 to 13. Listen, this might not be very important to you, but this is extremely important. This is placing a much higher calling upon the date, the appointed time of Hanukkah. And I say the appointed time, it's not really an appointed time right now. There's things that have happened on that date, and now we're going to call it what it is. It's an appointed time in the future. Daniel chapter 12, verses 4 to 13. But as for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up the book till the end of time. Many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. And I, Daniel, looked, and behold, two others were standing on this bank of the river, on the other bank of the river. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who is above the waters of the river, how long will it be till the end of these wonders? And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he raised his right hand and his left toward heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, it would be for a time, times and a half a time. That's 3.5 years. And as soon as they finish shattering the power of the holy people, all these events will be completed. As for me, I heard, but could not understand. So I said, my Lord, what will be the outcome of these events? He said, go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up till the end. Many will be purged, purified, and refined, but the wicked will act wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand. But those who have insight will understand. From the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Now, pay attention to this. If you go 1,260 days, that's exactly 3.5 years. The abomination of desolation most likely will happen at Passover or 3 days prior to it. Okay, and we have reason to believe it because it's at the halfway mark, of the 7-year covenant that's broken at the middle point, bringing us to around Passover, or probably the 10th day of the month, the day of the taking of the lamb, the 10th day of Aviv. If you add 1,260 days, it brings you to Yom Kippur. But if you add 1,290 days, it brings you to a month after Yom Kippur, which is Cheshvan 10. Again, the time of the ark and the waters. And I used to think that date was not that important. But it is. It's directly connected to this. Now, get this. He said, how blessed are those who keep waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. Well, if you add 45 days to the 10th day of Cheshvan, you know what it brings you to? Chanukah. And he says, blessed are those who keeps waiting and attains to the 1,335 days. That means this, when Messiah comes back, on Hanukkah, he says, blessed are those who wait till that day, because something big is going to happen on Hanukkah. And it's going to be this same covenant, that I will not curse the earth anymore by fire. And he will make it into probably a new appointed time. So Hanukkah, today we just look at rededication of the altar. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than any of us can imagine. It is so important that he even gives it to Daniel to wait for that day. So there's a great, exciting day coming for us that's going to be a new festival and a new appointed time. And a time that I don't even know what he's going to do. He put a rainbow in the sky for the flood. What is he going to do after the fire comes? What kind of amazing thing? I think it's going to be the appearance. And I'm going to tell you this is just my opinion. It's going to be the appearance of the glory over Jerusalem. It's going to happen on that day, I think. That's going to be the glory, his glory on the earth. He'll have defeated all of his enemies. So, You can look at the rest on your own time. You can go back through this, look at this calendar, and try to follow along as best as you can to find the appointed times are beneath here. You can follow through there and see. Remember, you're following the outside calendar. God changed the calendars in Exodus 12. But in the future, these two calendars are still valid for us, both of them. We are all physically born and born again. So is the calendar of God, physically born and born again. It was physically born at the creation, and it was born again in Exodus 12, when God said to Israel, this is the beginning of the year. The first day of the seventh month will now become the first day of the first month. Abba, in the name of Yeshua, Lord, I ask, Lord, that you would just seal this inside of us. Lord, there's so many still unknowns about it, but I know that this is important. Abba, that you're doing something important. And Chanukah now is not just a small thing, because we're seeing into the future, Lord. That what you did in the past is tied to the future. The first destruction of the earth, and then the second destruction. And then finally, Lord, that these days that you show your faithfulness and your love, Lord. Lord, even when we see a rainbow out there, we're reminded, Lord, of what you did for us, what you did for how you made a promise that you would never flood the earth, the whole earth again, Lord. And Lord, we know that there's going to come fire next time. And instead of waters coming out of the mountains and waters coming from above, there'll be fire coming from above and fire coming from below. And it'll be horrible. But I also know, Lord, that you're going to establish your kingdom over the earth right as that's about to happen, as that happens. And Lord, that you will make that promise, that you won't ever do that again. There'll be one more destruction, but that won't be for any of the people of God. That will be a whole new creation, and a whole new heavens, and a whole new earth, a whole new Rakia. Everything's going to be brand new, so that doesn't count as a third destruction of the earth. It's going to be all new. Everything, even the earth itself will be new. And Lord, I just ask, Lord, that you just would guide us and cause us to understand as we get closer to Chanukah, how big this is and how much bigger it's than we can even imagine, Abba. That it's not just an ordinary day anymore. It's not just a day to celebrate what the Maccabees did to overcome their enemies, Abba, but there's so much more going on. So that you gave Daniel so many prophecies about this time period, about Chanukah, Abba, for our benefit to know. And those who have insight won't be surprised. As it says in your word, Lord, that the wicked will act wickedly, but those who understand, who have insight, will understand. And you have given us insight, Abba, into your times and seasons, into things maybe that very few people have ever heard of, even among the Jews and among believers, Abba. Thank you, Abba, for revealing such treasures out of your word. Thank you, Abba, for the wonders of Chanukah, the wonders of the flood, the wonders of what you do, because you are going to have a world that follows you. You are going to have, no one's going to say no to the Lord, for they will all know me from the least to the greatest, Abba. That the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. The whole world will be filled with the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. In the name of Yeshua.